going to turn the time over to our keynote speaker, Scott Amyx. Scott is the founder and CEO of Amyx Plus and managing partner of Venture First. He is a thought leader, speaker on stages around the world, and author on wearables and the Internet of Things. He has been featured in a variety of prestigious publications, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wired, and the Chicago Tribune. He has been nominated to the World Economic Forum as a committee member for the future of the Internet. And the Republic of Korea nominated him to represent cutting-edge research and case studies on IoT at ITU Telecom World 2015 in Budapest. His credentials are long and impressive. Scott holds a master's in applied microeconomics public policy from the University of Chicago and was a National Sloan Fellow at Carnegie Mellon. Today, Scott opens In Context Now with a keynote on engaging consumers in our new super smart world. Because super smart customer engagement is already here, from bots to neural networks, marketers can expect dramatic changes in consumer behavior. The implications are enormous. So how do we monetize in this super smart world? Scott has some answers. Please welcome Scott to the stage.
Thanks, Dave. Can you hear me? Okay, there you go. So I almost didn't make it here today. And for some reason, because I traveled a lot, so I'm just coming back from Paris and Dubai, that somehow I think the Murphy's Law is just kind of stuck with me. So I come out of my hotel this morning and I request a lift. And what do I get? I get a Prius. And a driver is supposed to be native, but is very conservative. And apparently only knows kind of like the one-way direction. So it took only half an hour to get here when it's just a few blocks away. So like I was saying, I came from Dubai to Paris to here, and here's what happened. So the first leg of my flight was very good, but once I got to Paris, they had us taxied into the plane, and we were sitting on the tarmac, and they told us that they have a very minor inspection issue, and that they need nothing more than just 5 to 10 minutes, just 5 to 10 minutes. And of course, what do? 15 minutes later, they said, oh, we just have to do a little bit more checking. So give us a few more minutes. With that, this kind of prolonged until 4 hours passed. Keep in mind, all several hundred of us on the tarmac, sitting in a very comfortable position. And then they finally say, you know what, actually the real issue is much bigger and we can't fix it. So we're gonna just bus you back. So they bus us back, and then we have to go through security all over again. And I'm scrambling to figure out how am I going to get to Atlanta on time. So there you go. So now I have to say one thing that was really interesting was, even though they didn't do a great job with customer expectation, the stewardess on flight were very empathetic, and I was very impressed with that. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. But before then, a little bit of politics. I was reading a newspaper abroad, and it said that, believe it or not, Donald Trump may become president of the United States. And according to economists, they forecast huge growth in hairspray sales, wall building materials, and one-word slogan stickers. And it's going to be huge! So what I want to talk to you today is about something called human data analytics. Now let me go back to the slide here. Human data analytics is about using messaging applications, social media, wearables, and the Internet of Things to be able to automatically ascertain people's emotion. Now I'll just stop there because we're working on some other interesting things. I was recently interviewed on some things that are not cognitive AI, but rather on something that's more qualitative. So we're doing some things on the side with consortia that's looking at things like empathetic AI as well as humor AI, which is a part of my presentation, but I'd be happy to talk to you about, because we're pushing the envelope. We've all heard about Vid, Facebook, and so forth. Well, a lot of these fall under cognitive AI, which means a virtual assistant. Help me to do something. Do this task or do this workflow for me. The area that's very interesting for us, which is a pioneering frontier, if you recently came across a research that's looking at humor in pictures or illustrations. They've done some research where they've taken illustrations, let's say they have a table, a dinner table, and people are actually sitting on that. What they do is they actually replace the humans with cats and dogs, and humans find that funny. But they're actually teaching the machine learning system to be able to systematically identify funny pictures and then make them unfunny. So that's kind of the early set of research that's happening, but we're pushing the boundary. We think that there's an opportunity for an AI, not a bot, I hate the word bot, but an AI that can understand you as a person and want to actually befriend you and connect with you. I'll tell you why that's important, but again, that's a little bit different from today's presentation. But it's important because people need to be supported. Why do people go on Snapchat? Why do people take so many selfies? It's a point of self-validation. And when brands start to understand that notion, they can start to support their emotional needs. Now you have something very interesting. All right, so hopefully I got your interest. So this is Emma. Emma is a young professional, and she's very active on social media. By the way, for this person, I was debating, is it going to be Emma or is it going to be Bob? Well, Bob's a 50-year-old who's unemployed and lives with his mom in a nursing home. And I figure Emma's probably a better persona for this. For Emma, her core tenets are get to know me as a person. Meaning, don't look at me like a dollar sign. There isn't a dollar sign that's floating in my head. And in finance, we even have terms where we segment it according to affluent, mass affluent, high net worth, ultra high net worth. But look at me beyond my net worth. Build a relationship with me. Transactions are easy to substitute, but relationships are not. And that's part of the reason why I still go to the same Trader Joe's clerk with the lazy eye. I never know what he's looking at, but I really like him. Make it easy to do business with me. Whether we're talking about online, whether we're talking about offline or underline, make it accessible and make it frictionless. And we'll talk about self-service in just a bit. Respect my time. I spoke with one of the key EVPs at E-Trade, and they developed a platform. It's a robo-advisor platform. And his philosophy was, when it comes to reducing friction, it's about respecting my time. I love this Porsche ad that I saw near where I live in Silicon Valley. And their whole premise around brand emotional identity was time. Because they know that if you're an industry tycoon that's going to be purchasing the next Porsche, it's not an issue of price tag, it's an issue of time. Handle my paperwork, drop off my car, because I am elsewhere. Respect my time. Providing consistent, guaranteed service. It needs to be highly personalized, customized, unique for that individual, and they need to know that every time they interact with your brand, there's a consistency. Now, for people that are not clear, that provide bad service, well, at least they need to do it consistently. Treat each interaction uniquely. Now, one of the things that I notice when I go to Madison Avenue often is there's this mindset that, oh, we have a really good total picture, 360 picture of our customers, segments, and personas. Well, the way they switch their 360 is different time series. Some are quarterly data, annual data, past 3 years, 6 years. And we think that we have a construct of what this persona is all about. Well, just because they behaved a certain way last year, the way they behaved last week, or even last hour, is not always indicative of how they're going to behave now. So understanding the necessariness of treating them uniquely for that given moment. To give you an example, we were speaking with Media Saturn, largest retailer in Europe, for instance. They're struggling. They're a physical store, much like Best Buy's, and they're struggling to compete with online retail. So how do they ensure that the people that come in actually find value, so they don't just purchase that product online? Well, it comes down to treating them uniquely. They're coming in not because they're not educated, they're actually very well educated. They just don't have the time. They need to be given a personalized, unique opportunity. Inform me when your product is most relevant and timely. I have spoken all over the world around around this topic, this intersection of advertising, marketing, Internet of Things, AI, blockchain, you name it. One of the things that's very important that I think you get, but people outside do not get, is they just broadly put this paintbrush and say advertising is bad. Millennials hate them. X and Y, they hate them as well. Actually, that's not true. If you really dig deeper, as you know, they actually like advertising. They like advertising when it's relevant, when it's timely, and when it's personalized. It's just that we're really not very good at targeting. Attribution, targeting, optimization, yes, we spend millions in acquisitions. We try to do our best, right? But it's not enough. But when it's targeted, when it's timely, it is very valuable. So Emma has to go to a black tie charity event. She's very excited, but she clearly needs a dress. So she decides to go online and browse and look at a few different brands, not finding what she's looking for. So she decides to head over to the Prima shopping mall to see what they have at the stores, right? And by the way, for some of the gentlemen out of the audience, just so you don't feel left out, this is Doug. And Doug's gonna tag along to get ugly socks. So let's talk about this stage at this point. What are some stats? Well, we know that 75% brands say they're doing engagement, but really they don't fundamentally know the actual formula or the paradigm of how to measure engagement. Less than 1% of companies have successfully deployed omnichannel, even though, as you can see, most of them are working on it. 23% are doing some sort of multi-channel. 2% are doing cross-channel tracking of data. And 67% of customers don't really care how they interact with you, as long as you can interact with you. But less than 1% of companies can measure customer engagement. That's what I'm going to talk to you about. How do you systematically and automatically use AI, machine learning, and the Internet of Things to measure customer engagement? Well, this is where human data analytics come in. Human data analytics is taking the information that they're on, convert conversations like this messaging application, social media, bots, and so forth, that some of you are very familiar with, as well as the wearables, things that's on their body, and environmental. So in the context of retail, there are actual CCTVs, IP-based. There's beacons, there's Wi-Fi aware, there's 5G that's coming up. There's lots of opportunities, not just for geospatial and time series, but things that's going to get into very interesting things like biometrics and physiological data sets. But here, there's a little conversation happening. So Emma's been kind of browsing around at the mall, and she's feeling a little bit like, oh, I'm not finding what I want. So she sends a message to her best friend. Hey, beautiful, did you find that dress, the friend says? No, I haven't found something that I really love. The friend says, you should really check out Giorgio Armani. And she loves that suggestion. Well, the human data analytics takes the information, that conversation that's happening, and automatically recognizes that, right? And converts that into something we call personal empowerment point. There's a startup that some of you may have heard of. It's actually started by 2 women. They're essentially writing fortune cookie things, in the sense that what they're doing is they're literally manually writing little sentences to send to women in this segment, kind of the millennial segment, every day. And the reason is they realize that for that segment, especially that segment, but also just all of us really, we need to be encouraged. Some of the women in that segment have confidence issues. And what the founders are trying to do is, even though it's manual, trying to send messages to reinforce, hey, you're gonna do great today. You're gonna get it. You're gonna take the day by the horn, so to speak. So here what we're trying to do is, the reason that your users, your consumers will actually interact with something like this is because they perceive the service, this API service, as a personal cheerleader. It supports me, it empathizes with me, it encourages me, and it turns that interaction into personal empowerment points, And those points become rewards or loyalty points that works in conjunction with your brands. Now, we know that most brands have an emotional identity. Coca-Cola, we all know what that is. McDonald's, absolutely, love it, right? So when users actually experience these brand emotional identities and it gets registered, that information goes to the brands to then execute programmatically. That's the kind of opportunity we're talking about. Now, let's go to the interaction stage. So Emma says, okay, I'm gonna go to Giorgio Armani. And by the way, I don't shop at Giorgio Armani, mostly because I can't pronounce it. And one sock, not a pair, but one sock exceeds my credit card limit. Okay, so she's browsing around Giorgio Armani. And let's take a look at some of the stats in this stage. 78% of customers expect to get answers from self-service. I hate it when salespeople approach me. I just want to be left alone. Let me handle the transaction via messaging application. So we're partners with IBM, and one of their API service startup uses the natural language processing from Watson API and actually has developed a hotel concierge service. So when you come into the geofence of a hotel, and today I'm staying at Marriott as an example, without having to download an application, it recognizes that I'm there and says, welcome to Marriott, can I help you? So what it's doing is actually using AI to substitute the human concierge with an automated concierge. That concierge on the messaging application will then be able to interact and handle all your transactional needs, from booking, restaurants, everything. And it's all done on their phone. They never have to download anything. That's a self-service. 91% of unhappy, complaining customers simply leave. We rarely don't want to actually have a confrontation with people. Right? We just rather just leave. 84% of consumers are frustrated when the salesperson frankly doesn't know. And it's even more frustrating when they act like they know, but they don't know. Well, Emma is feeling really frustrated right now because, remember, she's already spent time online. She's spent time walking around the mall, and she's come to this Armani store and feeling frustrated because she just needs to find her dress. She doesn't have time to look for shoes and purses. Doesn't want to get distracted. Well, her emotion gets registered in the in-store CCTV IP camera, and combined with the API service of human data analytics, is able to ascertain that there's something going on. Well, that notification goes to the smartwatch that the store manager is wearing, indicating that there's a customer service issue out there that needs to be addressed. So this customer service manager approaches Emma and says, can I help you? What's going on? Well, Emma says, you know, I got this big event in the next 2 days and I don't have time to do this. Can you help me? So the manager picks out a very few select set of dresses, and then, voila, she's trying them out. Efficient, not reactive, responsive. Emma really loves this dress. It's exactly what she's been looking for. It's bright, it's beautiful, it's bold, and unaffordable. Well, 86% of customers are willing to pay more for a better experience. Sometimes it's not just by price elasticity. 55% of consumers are willing to pay more for a guaranteed service. If I go to Nordstrom, it's not because I'm going there because I want to pay a premium. I know that there's a premium. I'm going there because there's a predictable service that I can expect. 65% of companies are able to successfully upsell or cross-sell to existing customers when you get these building blocks right. So Emma is thrilled. She texts her friend. I'm just looking around to make sure I don't fall off, because I've done that before. No, actually, I haven't. You're not going to believe it. I bought the most beautiful dress. And like a millennial, of course, she said, her friend says, this is fab, I love it. Feeling envious. And then because Emma's been, remember, she's been shopping the whole mall and trying all these dresses, she's really thirsty. all this shopping has made me so thirsty and dying for a Coke. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm at Coca-Cola. I'm saying it because I want a year's supply of free Coke. Now, she even posts a picture of Ariana drinking Coke. Well, all of this interaction is being understood by the API service, the AI API service. Now, keep in mind, there's other modalities coming from her smartphone that she's giving permission, from environmental that she's giving permission and opted in, then the richness of the result is even a higher confidence level. You can see how that has converted into an emoji that represents the primary and advanced emotion, plus the pep points that you can actually start to interact with and reward. All right, so let's talk to the next stage, which is the intimacy stage. Right? So now she's bought the dress. She's gone home. Oh, she's really feeling excited. She's trying it on at home. I know the whole deal because my wife, she loves nothing but doing these catwalks at home. Guess what, honey? What, hon? I want shopping today. Oh, okay, let me sit down. All right, go ahead and start the show. So she's trying out on her dress. But as she tries on her dress, she realizes there's some imperfections. I'm paying a lot of money, a lot of zeros. So she goes back to the store the next day to find a replacement. And she's told that they don't have a new dress in her size, and they have to order from the warehouse. And it's going to take 2 days before it arrives at her house. Unfortunately, the event right now is tonight. The event is tonight, the big charity event. What in the world is she going to do? All right, so let's talk about what's happening at this stage. Only 1 out of 26 unhappy customers complain. The rest churn. 85% of customers churn due to poor service that was preventable. 55% of customer requests for service is on social media, and they're not acknowledged. And 67% of escalated social interactions go to the channel of origin. So there's an opportunity here. Well, we can choose to make this into a bad opportunity, or we can actually do something proactive, real time. So on the premise, we have an opportunity where, depending on the implementation, either on the phone or on the premise, implement things like voice analysis. As an example, just one of many modalities. But the voice analysis is actually analyzing your speech, your tone, your cadence. Because we all know that when I say turn off that radio versus turn off that radio, that means completely different things. And based on that human data analytics with that particular modality, it's identified that Emma's feeling quite stressed because she can't get her dress on time. Well, that information goes back to the store manager, and the store manager recognizes that and says, Emma, what's going on? And Emma explains, well, you know, I've been talking to the CSR, and she says I have to wait 2 days, but the event is tonight, what am I going to do? Well, Tiffany, because the store manager says, well, first of all, I want to empathize, I want to let you know that, yes, you're in a very difficult spot, and I want to try and help you. That's very important, that's step number 1. Then, she makes the call to all the stores within kind of that 25, 50 mile radius, and she finds a store that has a new dress in her size. She coordinates so that it arrives immediately in half an hour so that Emma has the dress in possession. So this is what Emma shares out on social media. This manager saved my life. Thank you so much, Tiff. You're the best. I love Giorgio Armani. That's what you want to hear from your customers. You want them to say, I love Marriott. I love Coca-Cola. I love Procter & Gamble. I love my CPG brand, or retail brand. Well, that interaction gets quantified into the human data analytics API service. It converts that into an emotion. It converts that into points. Now, these points, like I said, is very important because it's kind of like a gamification. One of the things, if you've read some of the books on habit, for example, that we're working on, is we think that there's an opportunity where advertising can take the form into habit, positive habits. Because we don't want to deal with transactions. It's kind of like washer and dryer. You buy it every 6, 7 years or so, and you don't have an interaction with appliance manufacturer. You want to be able to have a relationship even post-sales. So here's an opportunity where we can actually start to engage with them. And every time they're interacting with your product, if you're a sunglass manufacturer and they're taking a picture outside of the park with it, then you can reward them. You can recognize that. And so that they feel like my brand is something that I have a relationship with. Influence stage, last stage. When somebody's unhappy, 13% tell 15 people or more. Now conversely, 72% share a positive experience with 6 or more people. Interesting stats. 6 to 7 times more expensive to attract new customers than to keep existing ones. Only 12% of companies are able to successfully upsell or cross-sell to new customers. And the point that I want to come back to is this last bullet point, which is 70% of companies that deliver best-in-class customer experience use customer feedback. So what if you can actually start to get customer feedback real time? You know, we hear a lot of implementations where they have a contactless payments transaction and they're prompted with a survey they will fill out. Or I've been to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur and Seoul recently, where you go to the airport or different restaurants and they have this little screen, just like at the hospital, unhappy, happy, you know, and then you click on the emoji. Well, what if we can actually start to do customer feedback real time? Imagine what that means for you in the enhancement of brand loyalty. So Emma goes to the party and it's a big hit. Her dress is just adored. She can't get enough compliments about her dress. I mean, she's just having a fantastic time. And yes, she has a little bit of ketchup stain on it. So she says, my dress was a hit. She sends a picture of herself at the party, and her friend says, you look amazing, speechless. So there you go, human data analytics. A way to become a personal cheerleader and to connect their real life experience online as well as offline with your brand story and identity. So thanks for listening. We didn't have enough time, but if you like, I have opportunities to showcase some of the API services just so you get a sense of it. So come and get me afterwards, and I'd be happy to talk to you about also empathy AI, humor AI, which is completely different. So we're talking to a comedy writer who wrote for late night shows like David Letterman and Conan and so forth. We're actually taking his methodology systematically trying to create an AI that tells jokes, not randomly, but in context. Because if you look at the Snapchat, if you look at the WeChat, the WhatsApp, the Facebook Messenger, what is happening? It's storytelling, it's humor, it's soft, qualitative stuff like this. So thanks for your time.
All right, perfect. So we're going to ask Scott some hot seat questions, if that's okay. We're going to move to a panel discussion. We've got a number of panelists that we're going to talk to a little bit about the Internet of Things. And I'm just going to kind of start out here with Scott. So I have to ask you, Scott, the first question that comes to mind is how the word bot was considered to be a really cool word for about 2 weeks. How did it lose its cachet so fast? When we started hearing about the importance of bots, I think Facebook kind of made a big deal out of it. And then within 2 weeks, everybody was saying, I don't like talking about bots. What happened?
Well, what I can give you my opinion. So in terms of what I'm going to opine is that we actually have a Facebook Messenger application that behaves like a bot, and we also have a kickbot as well, so the integration with Kick. So when we speak with those messaging application platforms as well as bot manufacturers, what we're talking about is a slice of a functionality that gets externalized. So let's say, for example, you are sort of a content aggregator, and you're just looking for certain key metadata. So when it identifies a key metadata, it just simply inserts some sort of a deep link back out to your articles or blog. Or it's looking for a particular type of a data or a photo or whatever it is. but typically they're not very sophisticated, that's why. So one of the things that I think is very important is we have to look at not features or functionality, but a holistic sense, because one of the things that we're very interested in is giving individuals their own neural network. Now we pick on myself. Yeah. Giving everybody their own neural network. Neural network fundamentally is a framework that allows for the data to learn itself. It identifies, it goes into the variables, and looks for the coefficient that's going to maximize the fit of that function. So by doing that, what you've done is not just this generic aggregate neural network that looks at generic population, you've created a customized way to understand the nuance of that individual to be able to target at that level on a mass personalization level. That's very interesting to us. And of course, all the capabilities that come into that once you understand nuances. Bot is on the way out to some extent. But ultimately, what we're going to see on the cognitive side, like I said, is the Viv text interfaces. NLP that you use for an HCI interface communication protocol to coordinate and the workflow automation. But that's stuff, that's doing stuff. I can do that stuff with somebody else, like IBM Watson. I can do that with Alexa from Amazon Echo. So, yes, if you're looking for pragmatic to do things, yes. But if you want something that is here, here, and here, the germane load, the intrinsic load, the extrinsic load, you gotta go deeper. You gotta get down to the individuals.
So, and I want you to talk a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of empathy. I mean, would you consider the case study that you shared with us? Is that an example of empathy? Are you showing us an example of empathy, or are you showing us an example of customer service? How would you describe it?
Realistically, the technology where it's at is because we're not at strong AI. Strong AI is really representing the ability to replicate the human, and the intelligence supersedes that of human. We're not there yet from a Turing test in the true sense. What we're talking about is weak AI, and right now we're at a point where we can start to identify reactions. What is their emotional reaction? What is their potential cognitive reaction? So we've actually got some collaboration with military as an example. We're going to use cognitive processing in terms of military. So if you think about soldiers that are placed in harm's way, and they've never been shot at, how are they going to respond, and how do you get them to refocus so they don't put themselves and their colleagues in harm's way?
And do you see the first applications of AI being principally around customer service? Is that where you see it, or where do you think it's going to be?
Well, I guess I should say yes. It's a bit of hybrid. So, the way we see it is it's a methodology. So AI, so I use X.AI for email scheduling. So if some of you want to schedule a meeting with me, you can deal with Amy. And you soon find out that she's annoying. Now I'll tell you why, because AI, at least right now, on the market commercially, it can only do so much, right? So what you need is another layer that's on top of it, that's a human computation. So AI computation and human computation. So one of the areas that I didn't go into too much in the presentation is when you're actually presenting an offer to the users, you don't just use AI, but you use an influencer model. So if I'm having a conversation and I text you and say, I could really use you for our data, can I do this? No. But let's say that I'm looking for a pickup truck or something like that, and you know me. So the AI is going to look at all the possible pickup trucks that could potentially meet my needs. And then the offer, instead of going to me directly, it actually goes to my influencer. And because you know me, you filter that kind of one or two offers and say, I know Scott, I think you really like that Ford truck. So then you send it to me, all of a sudden, in the form of an emoji. All of a sudden, it's not an offer, it's a recommendation from my friend. And it's gone through a two-step process, AI computation and human computation, to get us something that's highly tailored and unique for me.
Very interesting. Okay. So, Scott, I've got a kind of an academic question for you here. What does it mean to be smart? I mean, there's so much technology out there today that's being referred to as smart. We talk about the Internet of Things. We talk about smart. Give us give us your definition. What do we mean by smart?
So I've spoken at Singapore on IoT Asia, and I just coming back from Dubai with some of their largest smart initiatives. So places like London, Singapore, Dubai, and many other parts of the world, and China as well, smart city initiatives are massive. And of course, the term smart, what does that mean? Well, because you have a light bulb that's sensing, is that smart? Because your garbage can tells you that if it's full, is that smart? So where we are from an IoT perspective is very much still at the mission, publish and subscribe, emitting of data, has to be, especially in the M2M or machine-to-machine context. However, smart really is not about the sensors, whether it's a device with a full-out microprocessor, memory, OS, and so forth, or it's about the aggregation, pulling of that data into the cloud, but rather it's the ability to actually apply meaningful data analytics. Data analytics falls under several categories. Right? There's kind of the historical diagnostic analytics. There is, problem solving, kind of data mining, data analytics. Then the things that we're interested in is predictive data analytics. It's applying AI machine learning to get probability of something. If these variables occur, how will the oil refinery potentially explode in that particular section of the plant? And then you got the prescriptive data analytics, which is getting at, if I want to increase top line growth by 10%, what are all the things we have to do to achieve that goal? So we're interested in the predictive and the prescriptive data analytics, not what happened yesterday and so forth.
So if something, just because something has a sensor, that doesn't necessarily be smart. It has to have the analytics behind it. They have to be predictive. That would be your definition. Okay. So as you're looking forward, you're seeing all of these new technologies that are coming online that are talking about being smart in different ways. Maybe they basically got a sensor, but they should be doing more. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the Internet of Things?
So I can tell you that even though all of you kind of seem to be somewhat engaged, some of you are holding some reservation. And I know exactly what that is. It has to do with security and privacy. Why? Because I speak on this and I publish academic journals on it. Security and privacy, it's complex. And it's not easy per se, especially when we look at what's happening in the EU with GDPR. A lot of the privacy regulatory mandates, it is significant. And especially for most of you in your CXO, EVP roles, you are also potentially liable for privacy issues and infringing on consumer data. Now the problem, of course, as we know, is the data flows. It's not that it just holds in a certain data warehouse and repository, but it sits in many different systems. And then you get third parties involved, and then the data just flows and you can't keep track of it. So one of the things that we've been actually actively developing technology, and that's one thing is we don't just do strategy work, we do active development, is we're working with a security company to develop a peer-to-peer decentralized IoT security solution. Now why do I say decentralized? Because the future isn't just cloud anymore. Even though cloud is at the height of the market, it will start to be decentralized. And the nodes, the edges, the devices will have the processing power, memory, the storage, and the ability to actually run local neural networks. So there's a lot of opportunities. So instead of the traditional topology where it goes from your device, your phone, your gateway to the cloud and then back down, now you can actually communicate directly or efficiently in a scalable fashion. So that's the security that we're building. The next piece is the privacy. Privacy kind of solutions that we're seeing, Blackbox, Digime, Nico, they're really focused on housing consumer data and then monetizing it off by selling to you. That is, yeah. Now, MIT Enigma, they take that further and they do something called multi-computational approach, which is taking an encryption model. And the way that works in a very simple fashion is, if you were to ask, is this person old enough to have a drink at the bar? You're not going to pass over the PII data at all. You're not going to get anything. It just runs that query in a black box, fully encrypted, lockdown black box, and returns a result. The result is yes. So in other words, the future of privacy is that data isn't going to be at the cloud with the Google and the Dropbox, but it's going to be centralized. Moreover, using the blockchains and using new encryption approaches, it's going to reside locally, and in many cases, data doesn't have to be shared directly at all. Now let's talk a little bit about blockchain. What is blockchain? And most of you think about it in reference to cryptocurrency. Sorry, when I get excited, I speak a little too fast. cryptocurrency and bitcoins. But the fundamental underlying piece is the cryptography. It's the blockchain. The blockchain, what it's doing is peer-to-peer. It's having the trustless interactions. Meaning, I know you, Dave, but once we start to go beyond this room to other people and start passing information, we don't know that. So what blockchain does is it makes sure that only those that are absolutely authorized and have a certain key can actually interact with the general ledger. And that general ledger keeps track of all the transactions and interactions. And you know what's happening. There's full transparency. But it's fully locked down from an encryption perspective. You cannot hack this thing. There's no way to hack it. That's the beautiful thing about blockchain. So we're seeing a lot of interesting things around blockchain. So when I spoke with the CTO of Pfizer, for example, they've actually invested into Chain. And he's a big believer of private blockchain for value-based purposes versus public blockchain, where he's actually using some of those toolkits to build smart contracts. And I asked him, you guys do a lot of middle and back office operations. Do you have aspiration to eventually use blockchain to redo some of those things? Because when you do that, you can potentially have very scalable real-time transactions in a trustless, but trusted fashion.
Okay, so let's switch sides here for a second. We've been talking a lot about technology. Let's talk about marketing for a second. 2 or 3 words. How is the Internet of Things going to change the way marketers go to market? What makes a smart marketer?
One of the points that I called out earlier is this notion of respect my client. So even though consumers may not understand a lot of the concepts that we've been talking about, the sophistication, they are going to have a higher elevated level of expectation. Meaning, you should just know. You should just know. Whether I'm in my driverless car, whether I'm at home speaking to Alexa or not, whether I'm pushing Amazon Dot or Dash, whether I'm in the store, you should just know. I shouldn't have to call 1-800. I shouldn't have to send you something. You should just know and predict and anticipate my needs.
Love that. All right, Scott, thank you very much. Stay put here. We're going to invite our next analyst to come up. Lisa.